Here we are. We are live. I am at Skating PJ. These are my friends, Piper Gillis and Paul Poirier. You guys, I can't tell you how many people are excited to be talking to you today. So if you're out there in either Facebook land or in YouTube land, make sure that you get us questions and comments. And I'm going to do my very best to get as many of them in this broadcast with Piper. And apparently, Piper paid for the rights for a complete last name. Paul only has exclamation marks. Would
Yes.
you like to explain yourself?
I was toying with putting my last name or not, but then I figured if someone was tuning into this broadcast, they probably knew my last name, I would hope.
Fair enough.
If not, the little banner at the bottom has my social media handle. I couldn't find the word handle. My brain's not working right now. But my handle is there, and my last name is in the handle. And I thought I would use the exclamation marks to show a little enthusiasm for talking to you, PJ. I'm not being a suck-up at all.
Do you know what's so funny? When I first met you, Paul de Poirier, I pronounced your name in the French manner, Poirier, and I was corrected.
Can I tell you a story about that one?
I would love you to.
I think Piper knows this story.
Piper, we'll get to you in a minute.
So sorry, I'm taking over already. So my first junior national championships, I was probably about 12, and I remember.
And looked it too, by the way.
Yeah, or maybe it might have been the second. Anyway, we went to compete, and we did the compulsory dances because those were a thing at the time. And I remember my father was very upset because they announced me as Paul Poirier, and he thought I might have a better chance of placing well if the announcers announced my last name properly in French, Poirier, because that might curry me some favor with the Quebec judges. So he went up to the announcer and asked them to pronounce my name properly.
By the way? Who wasn't me?
Oh, I have lost all the sound. I don't know what happened.
We still hear you.
I think my headphones died.
Oh, okay.
Well,
take your headphones off, Paul. Can you hear us now? Paul?
Do you guys hear me? No, I don't hear you.
Yeah, we hear you.
We hear you.
Unplug the headphones, Paul. Should I send him a message? I can do that with this. Paul, can you hear us now? Let's just see.
Yeah, weird. That Paul just disappeared. It worked for a second. It worked with your headphones on.
That is very strange. You know, the minute, what can I say?
Well,
he's going to unplug the movie.
I do know this story. Oh, talk.
Paul? Why is it always happens as soon as the broadcast starts?
You know,
we will start with you, Miss Piper, in that case.
All right.
So we already have a great question from Susan Crosby, otherwise known as Red Hat Lady. She wants to know about your process for finding music that are so perfect for you. They've been magical. And that's absolutely true. I mean, I've got a picture right here of one of my all-time favorite programs, but it's probably symptomatic of my age. Paul, can you hear us now?
Yes, I can hear you now. I don't know what happened. I could hear you for a bit, but then when I unplugged my headphones, then it muted me, and then I couldn't figure out what was happening. So then I had to unmute myself. But tech woes aside, I am here. And
hooray! I was just going to show pictures of one of my favorite programs. It probably shows my age. Your disco program. First of all, I want to know, Paul, how quickly are you able to, before we get to Susan's question about process, how quickly are you able to grow a mustache?
It took about through the season 2.5 weeks.
Every time?
Yeah, every time.
Wow. Okay, Piper, you're up. Let's talk about music and about the process for finding it.
Honestly, every year is different, depending obviously on the season and what the musical choice is for the short dance. Earlier on in our career, I think we always wanted to do something completely different and again surprise everybody with what we do. Again, with the disco, that same year everybody was doing hip hop and we knew everybody was going in that direction, but there was kind of a loophole in that little, everyone was like, oh, there's disco sort of in there, but we don't really know who's going to touch on it. And then we were like, yes, well, I don't think anybody's going to touch on that, so we're going to go in that direction. And again, just finding ways to always challenge ourselves. We hate doing the same thing. We've done tango 2 times, and I think that's the only time we've ever, done something twice. And I think the first time we did it, we almost did it better than the second time that we did it, just ironically. But again, like same with Gavardo, like that was a complete chance. Everything we've done has been a complete chance of fate. But I think that gives Paul and I so much drive, and we pull from that creative process to create these magical pieces that people are fully involved in. And again, Carol is a huge part of that. She's got such a creative brain. She's got an eye, like a complete eye for every little detail that makes the story come together. But it's really a creative process. All of us bring in our little flares. Like Eurus, Carol can tell Eurus to go do something with me, and he'll just create her vision, and vice versa. And Paul always loves coming into the rink, and he goes down rabbit holes of YouTube finding music. And same with me. Like every year, you don't know who's going to find the right music, but as long as we creatively come together and approve the music and know we can go in that direction, we know we can make it magic.
It's so interesting as we're talking about events. So here's an old pal of mine, Shannon Mizell from Raleigh, North Carolina. He worked backstage sort of on the broadcast side at the Olympic Games. Tell me about your Olympic experience. What does that actually feel like? There are so many people scurrying around like the Shannons of the world. How did that feel?
Am I answering or Piper answering?
You can both go.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, the nice thing about it, like the Olympics, was like it was this final, we've worked so hard to get to that moment. Obviously, we had the disappointment qualifying for the 2014 season or Olympic Games. So when we finally made it for the 2018, we knew it was kind of a celebration of our career. We've had so many ups and downs, and that was just a moment of pure joy and happiness. And we fought so hard to get there, and we couldn't not show our best skating skills at the Olympics. We trained so hard for that. And when we skated, we had 2 like season best programs that we could have had that year. Like it was incredible. And again, earlier on in the season, it was not an easy thing at all. We switched programs. It was kind of chaotic, but we kept level headed. And by the time we got to the Olympics, we had our best performances. And that's, any athlete couldn't ask for a better position or better place. And we really enjoyed every moment that we were there, really.
Speaking of enjoyment, Paul, I'd like you to comment on this photo. Your first Grand Prix win, Skate Canada. Tell me about that.
Sure. On a complete digression, hi Eurus, because I see your comment. It doesn't allow me to reply on them because I'm on the platform. But hi Eurus.
Sorry, Puppet Master over here. Did you forget?
Yeah, I think winning Skate Canada was really exciting for us. It's something we've been wanting to do for a long time. Carol.
And Carol too.
Sorry, I can't focus like this. So. So
I knew they'd be there. I just knew it.
Yeah, of course. It was a really great moment. I think to be able to win our first Grand Prix in Canada was pretty special, and just a really nice moment for us. I think we had a really clear vision of the program that we wanted to create for a season where we were going to be competing a lot in Canada with nationals at home in the GTA, with Worlds in Montreal, going to Skate Canada. So I think that moment was really for us a time where we could finally see the fruits of our labor in a sort of way where I think for a lot of time we just sort of felt like we had been working with our heads down, just going. And I think it also, I think it was a big part of it was a result of just our increased confidence. We were really starting to believe in ourselves this past season. And I think that's what's also allowed other people to believe in what we're doing a little bit more.
It's so cool. You've got such great fans like Denise Barr. you guys have to explain yourselves. Double batch of shortbreads next time she sees you. What does that actually mean? Is that code for something?
No, she actually brings us shortbreads, and they're like the best shortbread cookies I've ever had in my entire life. Like she'll bring like a little bag, and I swear by the time Nationals or Skate Canada is done, they're gone. They're gone. And like I share it with my mom. I share it with my mom. My dad is obsessed with them too. Like they're incredible. So it's a thrill to have them as our amazing fans. You know, they're very supportive, but giving us gifts of shortbread cookies, you know, is a bonus.
Do you know what? And I appreciate the fact that you have shared shortbread with me. Not. So I'm sure that will change next time we see each other.
I will.
Yeah,
I will.
it's fine. Don't worry about it.
If she's making a double batch, there's more to share. Right?
A triple batch. Let's just say I want my own. A great question coming in from Haley Boat, Dorian Back, who wants to know, are there any teasers for 2020, 2021 music? Like, where are you guys at in terms of thinking about the next season and what's going to happen?
Well, I think, you know, a lot depends on what decisions are going to be made. We do already know that for the rhythm dance, I keep wanting to call it short dance, but it's now a rhythm dance. They're keeping the same theme as last season. So I think for most of the teams, in any case, there's very little incentive to change your music unless you didn't like it. For the free dance, we haven't really thought about it. I think a lot will just sort of depend on what the season looks like, which competitions we're going to be doing, and just what's going to be possible and when we're able to even get back on the ice and get ready for the season. So I think our sort of thinking about that has sort of been stunted by the current circumstances.
You know, lots of people want to know, maybe Piper, you can answer this. Lots of people want to know, how quickly can you get from zero to competition ready? So let's just say that all of a sudden they've decided that they're going to do a Grand Prix season, because there are no plans that really have been announced formally yet. There's lots of rumors, lots of speculation. But how quickly can elite level competitors like you guys, especially a dance team, because it's not just one of you, it's both of you. Mm-hmm. How quickly can you get from zero to competition ready?
It really depends on the circumstance. Like this, yes, Paul and I we aren't on the ice. We've had quite a bit of time off the ice, and it's been, I don't think actually besides Paul's ankle, we've had this much time off the ice. And, you know, it's going to take a couple months for us to really get back into the full swing of things. So, I mean, maybe 2 months, like 8 weeks, just to kind of get comfortable in our training. But to be competition ready, I would say probably 3 months, just because one, we're not getting any younger either. So we have to make sure that we treat our body and go in like small little increments. Because if we try to go, like, Paul and I are great athletes, but and Paul and I, honestly, it's hard for us to even mark things, as our coaches know. We go from marking to full speed in like 2 seconds. And we kind of have to pull ourselves back and say, look, like, what's going to be the best plan of attack? And if we take things slowly, we are going to end up being stronger, healthier, and at the top of our game. So I think 3 months, I think, is like an ideal amount of time to even think about. You know, we like, you know, at least a good 6 weeks of good run throughs, but it's going to take time. And I think a lot of athletes are going to have a hard time figuring out how much to push. And plus, we don't really know competitions too. So if we start training, say, for nationals in December, we're going to be burnt out before December even comes, right? So it's hard to say. Each athlete's different.
And, you know, Carol was very clear about saying that this whole idea of avoiding injury, you have to almost treat coming back to skating as if you have been injured. Yeah. But have you guys been keeping busy and trying to stay in some sort of shape while all of this has been going on?
Yeah, we made a good off ice plan with our coaches, with our physiotherapists, with our trainer. And the goal right now with the training, because we don't really have a set timeline with competition, normally our training is very periodized and everything's sort of planned so that we peak and have our highest level of strength and explosiveness and energy right when we get to a competition. So without those sort of set dates, it's hard to make a plan. So I think for us, the goal for the last while has really just been to stay in shape, avoid injury, and make sure that our bodies are ready so that when we do have the opportunity to get back on the ice, we're not getting hurt, and our bodies are sort of primed to get back into skating mode. So it's definitely been a reduced workload compared to what we're used to, but I think it's been good. I think it's given us just a sense of purpose to know that we're still kind of training and living our lives as athletes. Really looking forward to the Olympics that are coming quickly in less than 2 years now. But I think it's definitely, a reduced workload, and we also have to sort of accept that that's going to be our reality for the next little bit and be comfortable with that, because as Piper said, the goal is the games, and we want to be at our prime then. We don't want to be pushing ourselves now to get back into things quickly and then just getting hurt.
I got a great comment before the conversation even started from a Special Olympics athlete who said, Paul, that you had worked on some Special Olympics stuff and just what a wonderful help you were to those athletes. And I know that you guys are spending some time. This is Gold Ice, a synchronized skating team in sort of Toronto area. There you guys are in the red jackets in the background doing a seminar. You were both talking to me about off ice classes. Zoom classes, all the rage. Tell me what that experience is like for you.
It's definitely a different one. There's times where you kind of feel like you're an imposter syndrome. You've got that going on because you're like, oh yeah, like I'm teaching people, but it's the stuff that I've learned. But if you think of how many hours we spent working out or stretching, we have a lot more knowledge than we can actually give ourselves credit for. So, I mean, teaching the younger generation is a lot of fun. A lot of them are very eager to learn new things. But yeah, it's been a little challenging because, I mean, we do spend time on our phones and computers, but I'm not a scientist when it comes to computers. I'm like, okay, does the link work? If the volume's off, I don't know how to fix that. I'm a figure skater, not a computer genius. So it's been fun, but I don't know. But I think Paul and I both really enjoy teaching the younger generation what we've learned over the years. And again, it's a weird time for us to, all of us to be in. So it's kind of fun for us to have to learn new things and,
People don't need to know this, Piper, but I'm about to say it. Speaking of not exactly computer technology, but Paul and I are sitting here chit-chatting or whatever, and it was 1 minute and 40 seconds, and Piper came whoosh into our virtual waiting room saying, I didn't know I had to download a different blah, blah, blah. Anyway, we're glad you're here. You wouldn't be the first person who missed the start of a thing. Javier Fernandez, I'm talking about you. So fortunately, I've got lots of stuff I can vamp with. I don't know if you guys know my friend Howard Bannister, who's from Australia. He already told Carol that your Vincent and Both Sides Now programs are classics. I want to talk a little bit about that Piper and Paul program to Hitchcock. Paul, you looked completely psycho in that program. I know that's not you in real life. How were you able to do that?
I don't know. I mean, that season was definitely a different one for us in that I spent 3 to 4 months of that season off the ice. So I actually had, a third of that competitive season that was really just focused on, some rehab for my ankle, but otherwise just a lot of visualization. We had actually choreographed the majority of that program before I got injured. And so I had a lot of time to think about it and think about how I wanted to portray it. And even when I was able to sort of get back into training, I was only allowed on the ice for a few minutes at a time at the beginning. And so a lot of our training ended up being on the floor with mirrors, looking at shapes, looking at body lines, looking at the characters and how we were interacting. And so that sort of became I think the focus of that season was really how to develop characters and how to portray that relationship and those emotions while we're skating. And I think that program allowed us to grow a lot in that respect, because it was really the only thing we could work on in a lot of ways, because we didn't have the ice time to sort of get all the technical things down pat the way that we're used to. So I think a lot of it was just the opportunity that season presented. And I think it's, as we went into the seasons afterwards and the next Olympic quad, I think it became more of a focus because we saw how effective that was. And I think a lot of what's become our brand has been exactly that, to really create these characters that are real and that are believable and that tell a story, that aren't just simply there to just show good skating.
You know, it's interesting. Carol and I have been friends for a gazillion years. One of her first teaching gigs was at the same rink as one of my first teaching gigs, her first teaching gigs in Canada with John. So we've known each other really since before ice was invented, a very long time. So she invited me to Scarborough, as you guys know, to see a run through of Vincent. And I said, "So tell me a little bit about this free dance. What's it about?" And she said, "I don't know, just watch. Just watch and then tell me." So I sat down by myself in this empty rink. There was you, Carol, and Piper, obviously the three of you, and me. I sat down, and it was at the end of your session, and you did a run through, and I just said, "Oh, I like this music," and then honestly, I started to cry. I don't cry anyway, certainly not at skating programs. And there was something so authentic about that program that just moved me to tears. Both Sides Now has the same kind of quality. Um, uh, I just think that you have an ability to portray characters that isn't seen very often. So each of you need to tell me your favorite program from a character development standpoint, what you've enjoyed sort of developing the most.
That's tough because you know we've had Vincent, we've had Both Sides Now, but the one I absolutely love, and I think it's the first time that Paul and I really had that intimate connection that was just mostly between the two of us, was our tango. I think that's really where our character development took a whole new level, and I think people really started to appreciate, you know, that actual connection and bond that we have. We did a lot of off ice classes that year to perfect the Argentine tango, and I think we had a lot of say to do with, you know, the choreography and how to transfer some of the stuff off ice to the on ice portion. But I think that's probably one of my favorites in terms of connection and the quality of connection that we had. Vincent was kind of different in a way because whatever emotion that we felt that day, it was very easy to pull that into that program. And I think both of us have said, like, every time we competed it, every time we did it, it brought a different type of emotion out, which is very, very rare. But yeah, for me, it's the tango. I don't know about you, Paul.
Piper stole my answer, so I'm going to pout now.
Oh,
that's okay. We're matching shirt colors today. You know, we're on it.
We're coordinated.
How'd that happen?
It happens.
We don't call each other.
Yeah, no.
So, Paul, is there a moment that you sort of went, "Oh my goodness, I really love this character. Like, I love the fact that it's so different from me," perhaps? Or are you chameleon-like and you can sort of get into all of those characters?
I don't know. I mean, I think it's tricky. I think in some way, no matter which character you're portraying, even if it really isn't you, there's a part of yourself that comes into that. So the way that I might, let's just say portray a sort of moody, temperamental, obsessive director would be different than the way that another skater or another performer would approach that character. So I think there's a little bit of ourselves in each role that we do. I'm trying to think. There's one that's especially marked me, and I don't think so. I think different characters have drawn different things out of ourselves. So, for example, a program like the disco, I think was really able to capture mine and Piper's sort of more goofy side, and that's something that you'll actually see day to day. In that we joke around a lot, we're quite loud, we sing and dance and whatnot. Versus another program like the tango, which really required a deeper, more, I want to call it like spiritual connection more. So it's not necessarily a connection of like our energy, but really like a connection of our souls. And that was a very different kind of relationship. But I think we've been able to develop all those things with just the time that we've been able to spend together, and the time that we've been performing and skating together, I think has really allowed us to know each other on a level where we can create those moments and create those connections. because they're there and they really do exist.
You know what's so cool is that you just gave me the perfect segue. Talking about moments. Okay, we've got this and we've got a comment, a question about it from Sandy Kovacs. What happened with your hair? And the fact that you guys recovered so quickly, I think, is actually the bigger story. But you had an incident during your performance where, and this never happens, where, I mean, you couldn't even predict this one. It's kind of like a pandemic in a way. Never could have predicted we'd be where we are today, but you certainly couldn't have predicted that your hair was going to get stuck. So did you talk to each other? Like, what happened in that moment? Did you just realize I can't move anymore? Like,
Well,
tell me.
I think the only thing, like, I remember, like, again, I feel like my brain was moving, or my brain was like, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. Like, but I just remember trying to talk to Tommy, like, what do we do? What do we do? Do we stop? Do we stop? Do we stop? Like, I couldn't say anything other than, what do we do? What do we do? What do we do? And Paul's very cool and collected, and I think that goes to show we've got different personalities. I'm like very emotional, and Paul's very like narrowed in, like, we got this. And I think that's a perfect balance for a situation.
From your coach.
For me, it was a mini heart attack. I think for everybody, all of us were like, oh my God.
And from your other coach?
Yeah, but
yep.
I don't know. I mean, thank God Paul and I we've picked up that program in so many different spots. And again, Paul and I have our own language. Some skaters like skate by us and we're like, yeah, that, or the romance. Like, we don't speak in full sentences. We just get it. And I think it's funny for people to even, be in our world. But we knew the word romance, and that's where we pick up in a spot, and that was where we picked up. And thank God we've done that. And again, it's trusting your training and trusting your partner and knowing that we're going to get out of something like that. But again, we practice in that costumes. Never once had my hair get caught on a button.
How could you even think about that? Like, of all the scenarios that you guys practice, and I know you do, running into the rink late, forgetting your dress, forgetting your whatever it is. Like, there are all these different scenarios that coaches put their skaters through in order to be able to prepare for the unexpected. So, Carol, that's a new one. You're going to have to get big buttons for everybody so that their hair can get stuck. Stephen Boulanger, well known in the skating world. Oh, that's Howard again. But Howard liked your reenactment of Hairgate in the Kiss and Cry. And then Stephen absolutely loves your programs from last year. Your Free was a work of art. I 100% agree. So let's talk a little bit about art. I mean, Piper, you're into designing costumes, so you obviously have an artistic sensibility. Where do you get your inspiration?
Oh, magazines, people, life, nature. This year, I actually had a little bit of a step back from creating and designing my own costumes. We have Bobby and Sally designed their Bobby and Sally. They have a studio. There you go. In Scarborough, and they have such a beautiful way of creating their vision, and Bobby has been wanting to package us for many years, so we thought that this was the right year to be able to do that. But I always have ideas. I'm always sending him photos of our future programs, and we do have them, but I don't know. I got a lot of that from my mother. My mother was very hands-on with my costumes at a young age. So that really sparked my interest in fashion and creating things. And I think I just kind of lived through her, and I lived through my own self. I just love beautiful things. And so does Carol. We love showing each other, things that we found on the internet. So I think just finding inspiration from wherever you are, who you're with, and nature, like and beautiful, and having appreciation of beautiful things.
Do you know what, Paul? People are wondering about the stack of books behind you. So I want to know about the inspiration or is that a background? Are those real books?
They're my books.
And you're a language nerd like I am. You love words. You love the pictures that you can create with them. What is your biggest inspiration as far as the language world is concerned?
Why are you doing that to me?
Don't know.
Well, while
I
I'm
should
gonna
only be
stall
mean to
while I'm
Piper because you
thinking.
were on time. I'm just saying.
You didn't take me long, so I'm gonna stall while I'm thinking, and I will just point out that really, like when Piper talks about her and Carol, like you should see the amount of like Pinterest emails that go back and forth. It's just all the time, and I get sort of caught in the crossfire. And Carol's always like, "Oh, did you see that Pinterest thing I sent?" And I never did check it. So,
Just nodded. Carol's watching this, so now
yeah,
your
she's
goose is
nodding,
cooked.
she's laughing, laughing.
This is a great comment, actually, going back to the hair situation
Oh,
from Rebecca Dixon, who's a well-known sort of stress consultant. I don't know how else to explain it, but helps people cope with stress and with situations. Um, so, so it's true. You can't really prepare for every situation. Are there things in your real life that take you out of your comfort zone?
yeah. I mean, I think all the time, I think in some way the pursuit of being an athlete or being an artist or being a performer or whatever it is, that sort of the daily process is actually to get outside of your comfort zone in some way, whether that be sort of in a small way by trying to go a bit faster, taking an edge a bit deeper, or in an emotional sense in trying to be more vulnerable in a certain moment of the program. Um, to I think sort of the relational aspects of being an athlete. So being able to communicate with your partner and your coaches about how you're feeling that day, what you're going through, and what you need in that time. I think sometimes for all of us, it's really tempting to just say, you know, I need to show up and keep working and keep doing my thing. But sometimes that's counterproductive. And in some ways, the way that we get through all of the things that we get through and the way that we end up succeeding is by sort of rallying together as our little team. So me and Piper and Carol and Eurus and John. And I think a lot, at least for me, as perhaps someone who's a little bit more um, contained, for me, one of the biggest ways that I have to be taking risks very often and being out of my comfort zone is to be really communicative of what I need and what I want and how I'm feeling and all those things. But those are ultimately things that make me a better performer because I'm more comfortable sharing those parts of myself, and that turns the performances that we do more genuine because they're coming from a more real place.
So, Paul, I'm going to ask you this first, and Piper, you're going to have to answer the same question. Why ice dance and why Piper?
Oh, why Ice Dance and White Piper? Well, Ice Dance, I think, was sort of a happy accident in a sort of way. I was training at YRSA up in Richmond Hill and just kind of going through my dance tests, which is a thing that a lot of people do. And the coach there who takes people through their dance tests, her name is Donna Ijima. She's a wonderful lady. Um, anyway, so at the time, Vanessa was looking for a partner, and there weren't very many boys, as is the case in most figure skating clubs. So she asked if I was interested, and I was like, well, I like skating, so why not? And then I somehow ended up at Scarborough, and it just kind of sucked me in at a certain point. And as with everything, it's sort of a very gradual thing where you just do it a little bit, and then you want to get better, so then you need to skate more, and then people beat you, so then you want to get better, so then you skate more, and then eventually, I was training full time, doing ice dance. So, I think in a lot of ways it was a happy accident. I think in retrospect, I think what it's been able to bring me and what's really made me enjoy it and really come to love ice dance is really that ability to um,
That's
tell a
from
story.
yours.
So I'm getting distracted with all the jumping. And so I think it's that ability to tell a story, and I think that's for Piper and I. That's really what has become what we're about. Is that ability to be characters and to have a story and to be able to tell it and to share it with people and make people feel things through that. And that's what I've really come to enjoy. And it's something I think that as a performer, it's a way that I've really matured as Piper and I've gone through the years of skating together. Um, in terms of skating with Piper, um, you know, when I was last looking for a partner, we had set up a tryout, just sort of very last minute and very randomly. And as our coaches always say, you can tell in about 5 minutes if the skating is going to work. Just because some people your style matches well, and some people it really doesn't. The line doesn't look good. You don't skate the same way, and whatnot. As Carol says, Piper brought Sundaheim.
You can't spell always.
I end up typing it all the time. So, yeah, but I think that was really it. So the skating you can tell right away, and so it was really a question of, do we have the same goals? Can we get along? You know, and I think Piper and I were both of the attitude that we were in this for the long haul. So this wasn't a let's just see how it goes. This was really like a, okay, like if we're gonna do this, this is like for the Olympics, for the medals, for really seeing what we can do. And so I think when the stakes are that high, and when you know it's going to be many years of very hard work and a lot of disappointments as well as good times, I think you do need to make sure that you are with someone that you can really trust through all those things. And so I think, you know, we had known each other beforehand, and so had a sense of each other's personalities. But I think we knew we had the right sort of compatibility where we would be able to really stand by each other through everything.
Okay, Piper, somebody wants to say something, and then same question.
What you talking about, Piper Gillis? Or just
Yes.
Gillis? What you talking about, Gillis? That's
so let's hear from you. Why ice dancing and why Paul?
I started like very similar to Paul. Like I just started doing compulsory dances just to, you know, improve my skating skills. My brother had a partner at the time, wasn't that good, but again, it was something I was curious in. And when I moved to Colorado, there was a boy available, and you know, I was like, oh, I'll give it a try. I really got hooked later in that year. In January, I went to nationals to watch my brother compete with his partner, a new partner, which was definitely better, Trina. But I was so mesmerized with Kenneth Belbin and Ben Augusto. And she had this like boa dress on the edge. I think they were doing a compulsory dance, and she had this like ostrich feather skirt. And I was like, I want to do that. Like, I want that dress, and I want to be an ice dancer because of, you know, they can wear cool outfits. But so I really went in for the outfits pretty much. But then the more I did it, I got lost in the characters that you could be. Like, I love sometimes going on the ice and being someone that I'm not in normal life, right? I sometimes seem like a very bubbly and easygoing kind of person, but I can be kind of shy. So being on the ice gives me this new stage that I can create whatever I want. I could be whoever I want to be out on that ice. And I think that's why I still do it every day. Again, with Paul, he gives me that ability. You know, he's sturdy. I know where Paul's going to go, and he gives me that feeling that I can abandon myself and be the character and be, you know, what we're trying to portray. Again, like the reason why I love Paul is, you know, he gave me a shot. He gave me a new opportunity to continue my career. I was totally on a different path in LA, trying to be an actress and I don't know, dancing on music videos and just trying to find myself in life because I didn't like skating anymore. So I told myself, and you know, Paul gave me a second chance. Canada gave me a new home, and you know, Paul's been a trusty, supportive partner since the get-go. Believed in me, so did Carol and Uris. Again, it takes 5 minutes to really know whether or not you can get along with them. And it was funny, our partnership again. Paul can be like, I'm super emotional and talkative, and Paul is like peeling an onion back, you know, little by little you get to know Paul.
Olders are like onions.
Exactly. But like the way we started to bond, we bonded with like YouTube videos and quoting things. And then he came to Colorado and got to know my family. So, you know, skating, our whole community, we're like a family. And the more we got to know each other, the more, you know, I really loved Paul and his family and Carol and Uris. And, you know, I couldn't imagine my life without them now. Like, they are the best people I've ever met. And very, very lucky, to have them now as my family.
You guys have had a chance to work with some legends, including Christopher Dean and Jeff Demetriou, and of course, Carol and Eurus, who are the brain center, and John, and Donna, and. So I want to know the influences of all of those great artists. How has that impacted your growth as artists yourselves?
Go ahead, Paul.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, Christopher Dean. I mean, he
Yeah.
and Carol go way back, obviously. That's the thing
Well, I
about
guess,
skating that people don't know. You go way back with some people, like back to childhood almost.
yeah.
Everyone
So,
knows.
Well, yeah, I guess that's funny too, because Paul and I both worked with Christopher Deans with separate partners at a pretty young age. He's like a neighbor in Colorado to us and bought some of our puppies when our family would breed dogs. But Paul also worked with him with Vanessa. So I think, we both admire Torval and Dean. They're incredible role models to our sport. I mean, they are ice dance. They really are. So I think it's hard not to look up to them and want to be like them. Again, our first program was choreographed by Christopher Dean. So we've kind of had our two worlds come together in a different way with, Carol knowing Chris and her younger years too. But I think it's an honor to be able to keep working with, people who brought so much to our sport. And I think that's what Paul and I play off of is, we want to be good role models for the sport and keep pushing the sport in a new direction, just like they did. So, they kind of painted a path and we're continuing it.
so Paul, if you could tell me something, I want to know. When I was looking for pictures, I want to understand how you get from off the ice concept to this kind of a lift. Like what are the steps involved? Because you're really bearing the weight. Sorry, Piper, I didn't mean to call you
No,
the weight.
it's okay.
But in terms of technique, in terms of whatever, I've had lots of fans ask me, how do ice dancers train a brand new lift?
Can I go back to your previous question and then answer?
Sure, you can.
Cool.
You go.
Yeah, no, I think I just wanted to give a little shout out at this point to Jeff Demetriou, who did help us with the rhythm dance choreography this year. We really wanted the Broadway theme to be authentic, and so he was an integral part of the creation process for that program. And it was so nice to get a different perspective working with someone on the ground. Usually when we're on the ice, a lot of the program exists as a skeleton and then you sort of add layers to it. Well, I think on the floor, a lot of times, all of the movement is choreographed at the same time, all the heads, all the arms, all of everything essentially. And so I think he brought a really fresh energy to us and Carol and Eurus. We definitely have a method to our choreography, and that's worked a lot of times in the past, but I think it was really nice to have a different voice and a different approach to choreography for that program. And I think it brought out a different side of our skating in a way, and it forced us to ask different kinds of questions. I think as skaters, we take a lot for granted because we've been doing this our whole lives, and there are ways to do things and ways not to do things. And so when you get someone who's never been a figure skater in the same way, just ask, why does it have to be like that? It really gets you thinking, and I think it brought out a lot of really positive things. So he's just been, I think, just such a great asset to our team generally.
Well, and he's coming from a very different world. He's coming from the world of the stage, the world of television. I mean, Hellcats, closing ceremonies for Pan Am Games. I mean, some very, very ambitious projects. So to work with somebody who doesn't know your vocabulary exactly, so it was like speaking a different language, I'm sure, for both of you, both parties.
Yeah,
all three of you,
we choreographed on the ground first.
Yeah.
It was so weird. So since we're on the topic of choreography in the list, I think everything, as with all aspects of choreography, I think the process is different depending on the lift, depending on the program, depending on the time. And so there are some lifts where we have an image in our heads of what we want it to look like, and then we try and figure out a way to make it happen. There are other lifts that usually start something along the lines of someone coming into the rink in the morning. So I couldn't sleep last night. This probably isn't possible, but I was wondering if that's another way of going. I actually think that lift from Hitchcock was an accident where we were working on a spin and then Piper just kind of flew off.
And let go, yeah.
Centrifugal force, and then we thought, oh, this could be a thing. So I think a lot of the choreographic choices that we end up making, some of them are actually accidental, where we're trying to do something else and something goes wrong, but it turns into something cool that we think is worth keeping. And a lot of the choreographic process is being able to capture those things. So it's trying things out, it's improvising, but I think it requires a lot of flexibility, where sometimes things don't conform necessarily to your vision or what you imagine, but they can still be good things and good ideas. Yeah, but a lot of it, as I said, is trial and error, and some of it we have a really clear sense of what we're trying to do, and other times it's like purely exploratory sorts of things. And then sometimes you find something good, and sometimes you waste 4 days trying to come up with a lift and being exhausted and coming up with nothing.
You need a little sprinkling of magic.
Yes,
right?
And it usually doesn't come when you want it to. Sometimes you have these great days where just like the first thing you try is exactly what you want, and as I said, other times where you spend a week doing choreography and getting almost nothing done.
Yeah.
It's kind of like earphones that work until you press play.
Yeah, Paul.
I don't know what happened.
One of your fans is asking me to ask you again, was there any end to this story, coming full back circle to the beginning of our interview, to your dad asking the announcer to say Poirier? And how do you like your last name pronounced?
Okay, so for the ending of the story, and if people weren't here before, essentially when I was doing my first nationals, my father was very upset because they pronounced my last name Poirier and not Poirier. And he thought we might get better scores from the Quebec judges if they announced my name in French. So he went up to the announcer to ask for the French pronunciation. As for myself, I'm not too picky. I think it really depends on the context. If I'm speaking English, I'm totally fine with Poirier. If I'm speaking French, Poirier obviously makes more sense. I'm not such a stickler about it, to be honest.
Do you know what? I just know that it's Sir. Yes, sir. That's how I'm going to call you from now on, because honestly, you are becoming a legend, my friend. You both are, in terms of what you're able to deliver on that field of play. Last question before I let you go. We've got some young skaters and some young people who are listening to this broadcast. One piece of advice to help them get through the pandemic and all of the re-entries back to the rinks whenever that happens.
That's tough. That's tough, because I know during this time it's pretty easy to quit or not want to do your training or stretching or that kind of stuff, because it's hard to see that light. But I know for myself that nothing ever stays the same. The world is always changing, but again, the love for our sport will always be there. So for myself, it's one day we'll be able to get on the ice, and loving something, you want to put energy and time into that. So taking care of yourself is going to help you. So again, find light in whatever you love, do it. It'll make you happy, and then you'll be happy when you get on the ice.
Paula, have you got a piece of advice?
Yeah, sure. I think the thing that has definitely kept me semi-sane through this process or through this season has really been to continue to feel connected to my skating family. And so we've been having regular calls with Carol and Eurus just to sort of talk about things. And even if we don't really get any important decisions made, because we really can't make any decisions with no information, I think just coming together and knowing that we're still all united in sort of our mission and what we're trying to accomplish, I think makes the sort of helplessness or the seeming helplessness of the situation go away a little bit. So I think a frequent coming together, even if it's just little calls, of making sure that you're all on the same page, you're all there for each other, and you're all just still striving forward in the way that you can, I think really can chase a lot of those blues away, for lack of a more original way to put it. But I think that's been really great, is that we've continued to be there for each other through the last 10 weeks.
We also have to realize that it's not going to be like this forever. There will be at some point. We will resume normal activities at some point. They may look a little different, but they're going to be fine. So
Yeah.
I have one piece of advice. If you want to be like Piper and Paul, then I just been watching the late night guys. Press subscribe wherever that is, YouTube channel, or like me on Facebook. Actually, follow them on Facebook and on Twitter and Instagram. And Piper Gillis and Paul Poirier, you guys are a delight. You always have been. And I'm just so pleased to know you. And thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us.
Thanks so much, PJ.
Thanks, PJ.
Bye for now.
Stay well. Stay well,
Bye.
everybody.